The silent signal commander Thylex floated through the ancient station's corridors, her tentacles propelling her gracefully through the zero-gravity environment. The Aquarian had been exploring dead civilizations for nearly a century. But something about this particular ruin made her chromatophores shift to nervous purple. The station orbited a dying star at the very edge of known space, and according to her scans, it had been abandoned for at least 10,000 years. Her team of archaeologists worked quietly behind her, documenting every detail of the mysterious structure. The architecture was unlike anything in the Galactic Dominion's vast databases. The walls were made of an unknown alloy that seemed to absorb scanner beams rather than reflect them, and strange symbols covered every surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Commander, you need to see this," called Drex, her Saurian assistant. The reptilian scientist stood before a massive sealed door, his scales flickering with excitement. "This seal is still active. After 10 millennia, it still has power." Thylex approached the door, her 3 eyes studying the intricate locking mechanism. At its center was a symbol she had seen only once before, in the restricted archives of the Dominion's capital world. A blue and green sphere surrounded by stars, with strange markings beneath it, that scholars claimed spelled out a warning in an extinct language. The sight of it made her hearts beat faster. "Open it," she commanded, though her voice carried uncertainty. As Drex worked on the ancient locks, Thylex activated her communicator. "Priority message to Dominion Command. We may have found evidence of the predecessors." The locks disengaged with a hiss that echoed through the station. Beyond the door lay a vast chamber filled with dormant machines and walls of dark screens. At the chamber's center stood a pedestal supporting a crystalline cube that pulsed with faint blue light. The moment they entered, the cube blazed to life, and every screen in the room activated simultaneously. A figure appeared on the screens, bipedal and strange, with only 2 eyes and no scales, fur, or tentacles. It wore a uniform of deep blue with that same sphere symbol on its chest. When it spoke, Thylex's translator struggled with the ancient language before finally rendering it into understandable words. "If you are watching this message, then the quarantine has failed, and they have returned. This is Admiral Marcus Chen, of the Terran Defense Force, final commander of Outpost Omega. We held them back for as long as we could, but our numbers were too few. By the time you receive this, my people will have retreated to the void between galaxies to rebuild our strength. We leave this warning for whoever comes after us. Beware the Devourers. They consume entire civilizations and leave nothing but darkness in their wake. If they return, you must send this signal to the coordinates I am transmitting now. Terra's children will answer, though it may take us millennia to arrive. Remember us not as conquerors, but as guardians who stood watch in the dark." The message ended, and the cube projected a star chart showing coordinates in empty space far beyond the galaxy's edge. Thylex felt her chromatophores shift to white with fear. The predecessors were not extinct. They were humans, the mythical Terra's children that appeared in the oldest legends of a dozen species, and if this message was activating now, it meant only one thing. The Devourers had returned. 3 days later, the Galactic Dominion's High Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from all 43 member species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall of Zenith Station, their voices creating a cacophony of sounds that the universal translators struggled to process. High Chancellor Krex, a towering crystalline whose body refracted light into rainbow patterns, called for order with a resonating chime. "Commander Thylex has made a discovery that challenges everything we believed about our galaxy's history," Krex announced. "The beings we called predecessors were not extinct. They were human, and they left our galaxy to protect us from something terrible." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Admiral Gorth of the warrior caste stood, his 4 arms crossed in skepticism. "Humans are myths, stories told to younglings about impossible beings who walked on 2 legs and conquered the stars with primitive technology. Next, you will tell us that their ships ran on chemical rockets and metal hulls." Thylex rose from her position, her tentacles spreading in a formal gesture of address. "I have brought the proof, Admiral." She activated the holographic projector, and Admiral Chen's message played for the entire assembly. When it finished, the hall fell silent. Minister Vela of the Etherian Collective, beings of pure energy contained in mechanical shells, spoke first. If this message is genuine and the humans were real, then where are they now? This warning speaks of coordinates, but they lead to empty space. We transmitted the signal as instructed, Thylex replied. That was 3 days ago. Even if the humans received it immediately, they could be thousands of light years away. Suddenly, every alarm in Zenith Station activated simultaneously. The defensive fleet reported massive gravitational anomalies appearing throughout the system. Ships were emerging from nowhere, not through hyperspace or warp tunnels, but simply stepping out of folded space as if distance meant nothing to them. The main viewing screen activated, showing the impossible sight. 12 vessels had appeared, in perfect formation around Zenith Station. Each ship was a work of brutal elegance, angular and dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. They were enormous, the smallest among them dwarfing the Dominion's most massive dreadnoughts. Along their hulls, weapon ports numbering in the thousands remained closed but visible, like the teeth of a sleeping predator. "Transmission incoming," reported the communications officer, her voice trembling. The screen shifted to show the bridge of one of the unknown vessels. The figure that appeared made the entire assembly gasp. It was undeniably the same species as Admiral Chen from the ancient message, but this human wore modern armor that seemed to shift and adapt to movement like liquid metal. She had dark skin, short black hair, and eyes that held both warmth and the promise of devastating violence if threatened. "I am Admiral Sarah Morrison of the Terran Expeditionary Force," she said in perfect galactic standard. "We received your signal. It has been 11,000 years since we left this galaxy, but we have not forgotten our promise. We are the children of Terra, and we have returned." High Chancellor Krex found his voice first. "Admiral Morrison, we are honored by your presence, but we must ask, how did you arrive so quickly? Our scientists calculated that even with the most advanced technology, it should have taken years to reach us from beyond the galaxy." Morrison smiled slightly. "Time and distance are not the barriers you believe them to be, Chancellor. We have had 11 millennia to perfect our understanding of space-time. What you see here is merely our first response team. Our main fleet is already mobilizing." Admiral Gorath stepped forward aggressively. "You claim to be protectors, but you arrive in warships that could destroy entire systems. How do we know you are not the threat we should fear?" Morrison's expression grew serious. "Because, Admiral Gorath, if we wanted to conquer you, we would not have announced ourselves. We would not have waited 11,000 years. And most importantly, you would never have known we were here until it was over." She paused, letting the words sink in. "But we are not conquerors. We are exactly what our ancestors promised to be. We are guardians, and we have returned because the enemy we fled to fight has found its way back to this galaxy." "The Devourers?" Thylex asked, her chromatophores shifting to deep blue with curiosity. Morrison nodded gravely. "We have been fighting them in the void between galaxies for millennia. We thought we had contained them, but 3 months ago our sensors detected a breach. A splinter fleet broke through our lines and is heading directly for this galaxy. They will arrive within 6 months." The assembly erupted in panic. 6 months to prepare for an enemy that had forced the mythical humans to retreat. 6 months before facing creatures that consumed entire civilizations. How can we possibly stand against such a threat? Minister Vela asked. Morrison's smile returned, but this time it held a fierce determination that seemed almost primal. "You will not stand alone. Humanity has spent 11,000 years preparing for this moment. We have built fleets that number in the millions. We have developed weapons that can crack planets and shields that can withstand supernovas. We have become something our ancestors could never have imagined, all for this purpose. The Devourers made one crucial mistake. They gave us time to evolve, to grow, to become the very thing they should fear most." "And what is that?" Krex asked. "Angry humans with nothing left to lose and everything to protect," Morrison replied. "We failed to protect our original home from them. Earth burned before we could stop them, but we will not fail again. This galaxy, your worlds, your children, they are under our protection now, and we would rather see the universe end than let the Devourers have them. The return of Terra's Guardians. The command center of Zenith Station had been transformed into a joint operations facility within hours of the humans' arrival. Admiral Morrison stood before a tactical display that showed the entire galaxy in stunning detail with Commander Thylex and High Chancellor Krex beside her. The humans' fingers danced across the holographic interface with practiced ease, highlighting defensive positions and strategic choke points. The Devourers do not think like conventional invaders, Morrison explained. They do not seek resources or territory. They seek consciousness itself. Every thinking being is food to them, every spark of sentience a meal to be consumed. When they attacked Earth, we made the mistake of trying to protect our infrastructure, our cities, our monuments. We learned too late that none of that mattered to them. Thylex studied the tactical display with her 3 eyes, noting the positions of the human fleet. Your ships have spread throughout the galaxy's outer rim. Are 12 vessels truly enough to mount a defense? Morrison touched her ear, activating a subdermal communicator. Captain Torres, please demonstrate our deployment capability for our new allies. The main viewing screen shifted to show empty space at the galaxy's edge. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality seemed to tear open like fabric and ships began pouring through. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands upon thousands of vessels emerging from folded space. Battleships the size of small moons. Carriers that could hold entire fleets and swarms of fighter craft that moved like living organisms. Within minutes, over 50,000 ships had materialized, and more kept coming. Admiral Gorath, who had been watching in stunned silence, finally spoke. How many ships do you have? Currently deployed? 8 million, Morrison replied casually, with another 20 million in reserve across 17 galaxies. We have been very busy for the past 11,000 years. Minister Vela's energy form flickered with what might have been awe. The power requirements alone for such a fleet would drain entire star systems. Morrison smiled. We learned to harness zero-point energy about 8,000 years ago. Each ship generates more power than a typical star. It had to be done. The Devourers adapt to any weapon used against them more than once. We needed overwhelming force and endless variety in our arsenal. A new human appeared on the screen, this one wearing the insignia of a science officer. His pale skin and augmented eyes marked him as someone who had undergone extensive modifications. Admiral, we have completed our scans of the Dominion's technology level. With your permission, I would like to begin uplift protocols. Uplift protocols? Krex asked. Morrison nodded to the science officer, then turned to the Chancellor. We cannot protect you if you cannot protect yourselves. The Devourers will not attack as a single force. They will split, adapt, and probe for weaknesses. Your current technology is approximately where humanity was 14,000 years ago. We can accelerate your development, share technologies that would take you millennia to discover. But understand, this knowledge comes with a price. What price? Thylex asked, though she suspected she already knew. Responsibility, Morrison said simply. Once you have the power to destroy stars, you must have the wisdom not to use it. Once you can fold space and time, you must understand that some doors should never be opened. We will teach you, but you must trust us when we say some knowledge is too dangerous even for us to use. The science officer on screen continued his report. The Aquarians show remarkable aptitude for quantum mechanics. The Saurians have natural abilities that would make them excellent at piloting our neural interface fighters. The crystallines could potentially master energy manipulation beyond even our current capabilities. Gorath stepped forward, his warrior, pride evident. We are not children to be taught. The Dominion has stood for 3,000 years. Morrison's expression softened. Admiral Gorath, humanity stood for 200,000 years before the Devourers came. We thought ourselves masters of our world, then our solar system, then the nearby stars. We were infants playing with fire, and we nearly burned everything we loved. Let us share what we learned from our mistakes. Suddenly, alarms rang throughout the station. The tactical display lit up with new contacts at the edge of sensor range. Morrison's face hardened as she recognized the signatures. Scout pods, she said grimly. The Devourers' advance force, They are testing our defenses earlier than expected. She touched her communicator. All Terran forces, implement Aegis protocol. Protect the core worlds at all costs. The human fleet moved with impossible coordination. Thousands of ships shifting positions simultaneously. The scouts' pods were small, each no larger than a shuttle, but they moved like living things, twisting through space in patterns that defied physics. Should we not engage them? Gorath asked, his hands moving to his weapon controls. Watch, Morrison commanded. One of the human destroyers fired a single beam of light that seemed to bend space around it. The beam struck a scout pod, and instead of exploding, the pod simply ceased to exist, erased from reality as if it had never been. Causality weapons, Morrison explained. We removed them from the timeline entirely. It took us 3,000 years to perfect the technology, and even now we use it sparingly. Removing something from existence has consequences that ripple through time. More pods appeared, dozens, then hundreds, each one probing a different vector of approach. The human fleet responded with a variety of weapons, each more impossible than the last. Gravity wells that crushed pods into singularities, nanoscale disassemblers that converted matter to energy, and fields that aged the pods millions of years, in seconds causing them to crumble to dust. But for every pod destroyed, the others adapted. They began dodging weapons they had never seen before, developing resistances in real time. This was the true horror of the Devourers, their ability to evolve against any threat. This is why we needed such a vast arsenal, Morrison said, watching the battle with grim satisfaction. Every weapon works once, maybe twice if we are lucky. Then we must switch to something new. Thylex watched in fascination as the humans coordinated their defense. Your neural interfaces, they allow you to think as one? In a way, Morrison confirmed. We retain our individuality, but in battle, we can share consciousness, experience, and intuition. It was the only way to match the Devourer's hive mind. The battle continued for hours, with the human fleet systematically destroying every scout pod. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The real invasion force was still coming. As the last pod was eliminated, Morrison turned to the assembled leaders of the Dominion. You have seen what we face. The scouts will report back to the main fleet, sharing everything they learned about our defenses. When they return, they will come in numbers that darken the stars, and they will have adapted to everything we just showed them. Then we are doomed, Minister Vela said, her energy form dimming with despair. No, Morrison said firmly. We are not doomed. We are challenged. There is a difference. Humanity faced extinction and refused to accept it. We evolved, adapted, and became something greater than we ever imagined possible. Now we offer you the same chance. She gestured, and the tactical display showed plans for defensive stations, weapon platforms, and shield generators that could protect entire systems. In 6 months, with your cooperation, we can transform the Dominion into a fortress that would give even the Devourers pause. Your species each have unique advantages that, when combined with our technology, could create weapons we never imagined. Krex looked at the other council members, seeing the fear but also the determination in their faces. What do you need from us? Morrison smiled, and for the first time since their arrival, it reached her eyes. Everything. Your scientists, your warriors, your artists, and philosophers. War is not just about weapons. It is about will, creativity, and the refusal to surrender. The Devourers consume consciousness, but they cannot consume what refuses to be eaten. They cannot destroy what adapts faster than they do. She brought up a new display, showing human colonies spread across multiple galaxies. We did not spend 11,000 years just building weapons. We spread humanity across the universe, ensuring that no single defeat could end us. We created art that transcends dimensions, music that resonates with the fundamental frequencies of space-time, and poetry that can make stars weep. We became not just warriors, but the embodiment of life's refusal to be extinguished. And now, she continued, we share that gift with you. Together, we will stand against the darkness. Together, we will show the Devourers that consciousness is not prey to be hunted, but a force that grows stronger with every challenge. Admiral Gorath, who had been skeptical from the beginning, stepped forward and offered his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Then we stand together, Admiral Morrison. The Dominion accepts your offer of alliance. Morrison clasped his hand firmly. Welcome to the real war, Admiral. Welcome to humanity's eternal watch. As the Council dispersed to begin preparations, Thylex remained behind with Morrison. Admiral, may I ask you something? Of course, Commander. Your message spoke of Earth burning, yet you seem to hold no bitterness, no desire for revenge. Morrison looked out at the stars, her expression distant. Revenge implies the devourers are capable of malice. They are not. They are a force of nature, like entropy or gravity. You do not seek revenge against a hurricane or an earthquake. You learn to predict it, to build stronger shelters, to evacuate when necessary. The Devourers taught us that survival is not about defeating your enemy. It is about becoming something they cannot destroy. And what have you become? Morrison turned to face her, and Thylex saw in her eyes the weight of 11,000 years of evolution, struggle, and determination. We have become humanity unchained. Commander, we have become the guardians of consciousness itself, and we will not fail again.